One of these days, maybe in the not too distant future, I believe that the current Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago will learn the real history of that island. And she would also learn during that process who the real friends of Trinidad and Tobago were back in the day when the Americans took lands in Trinidad, the Chaguaramas area, to create a base without consulting the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They didn't consult anybody, they just took it upon themselves, basically handed over by the British, really. Eric Williams, of course, was adamant that something like that just can't work. And the popular thing about Uncle Sam, we want back with land, came up. That was in the 1950s, going to 60s, 61, I think the controversy ended. But he was adamant that the land was not properly handed over, or it was just taken. It was something that he was angered about. And so during World War II, the British government, like I said, without consulting the people of Trinidad and Tobago, gave the US a 99-year lease for a naval base in Chaguaramas. And when the skirmishes came up, you'll be surprised to know that it was the same Venezuelan. At the time, the Venezuelan government was the one when the skirmishes came up, because the soldiers, were heading to Port of Spain, really. And the Coast Guard at the time in Trinidad blew up a bridge that was connecting part of Port of Spain there with Chaguaramas when you're coming in. And maybe if they had made it over that line, Eric Williams might have passed on sooner rather than later. It was the Venezuelan government who sent arms to Trinidad, to Eric Williams at the time and his counterparts, to deal with the Americans who were making advances into Port of Spain. You really find these things much in a history book. You have to know. And if you don't know, you just don't know. But now you know. I don't think Kamala knows the true history of the island that she's governing right now. And I think if she knew, decisions would have been made differently. Or maybe not. You see, the Americans are really nobody's friends. They have interests. Wherever that interest lies, they will go after it hard. And they will pressure you to accept their terms. And sometimes we accept them to our own peril, because we think that we're a small island and we can't battle with anybody else. So that is what happened. But anyway, the Chaguaramas base, of course, was leased out for 99 years by the British to the Americans without consultation. Eric Williams was angered by that. And then there was a campaign for the land because Trinidad and Tobago was moving towards independence. And Williams launched what they call a political campaign with the famous Calypso slogan, Uncle Sam, we want back the land. That was to reclaim the territory that the Americans had at a base. Of course, they didn't like it. There was no violence at the time when he launched the campaign, but there was a pushback after because they did not like what he was doing. This is the Americans, but I just wanted to show you that Venezuela was the one that sent the arms or the ammunition, you want to call it, for Williams and his people at the time to push back against the Americans. And they had to end up, the Trinidad people at the time, the Coast Guard, had to end up blowing up the bridge so that the Americans can't make any advance toward the Port of Spain area. I tell you all something. I don't think, note Venezuela was the one that helped them. I don't think Kamala knows the true history of Trinidad and Tobago. Maybe one of these days she would get a good lesson on it. Like I said, maybe if she knew it, like how the Grenadian Prime Minister understands expected to tell the Americans in a speech, no way, Jose. Maybe if she knew it, some of the colossal mistakes that she's making, she will not be making them when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago right now, especially when it comes to her association with little Naku. You all have a good day. You all have a beautiful day.